Ethan Cade had traveled farther than any human had ever gone before. The stars stretched endlessly around his ship, the Aurora Pathfinder, as it drifted toward the bright purple-hued planet called Zyphora. Humans had mapped it decades ago, but first contact had only happened recently. Ethan's mission was simple, or so he thought: study Zyphoran culture, establish trade relations, and ensure peaceful cooperation. Yet as he prepared to land, he couldn't shake the nervous excitement humming in his chest. The atmosphere shimmered as the Aurora Pathfinder pierced Zyphora's upper layers. Ethan stared through the viewport at the cities below. Elegant towers of crystal-like material rose from the ground, reflecting the violet skies. The landscape was unlike anything he had ever seen. Lush forests with luminescent trees, rivers that glowed faintly, and wildlife that moved with a fluid grace, almost as if they understood the rhythm of the planet itself. "Welcome to Zyphora, Captain Cade," the ship's AI said in its usual calm tone. "Estimated docking time 5 minutes. Ethan gave a tight smile. "Thanks, Nova. Let's hope they like humans." The docking sequence was smooth, and soon Ethan stepped out of his ship into a world alive with colors, sounds, and scents he could barely describe. Zyphorans, tall and slender with translucent, shimmering skin, moved gracefully around him. Their eyes were large and their expressions serene yet attentive. Despite the differences in appearance, Ethan immediately sensed an intelligence and curiosity that reminded him of humanity itself. A small figure approached him, walking with careful, measured steps. She was elegant, wearing flowing garments that seemed to float around her. Her eyes, a bright shade of violet, locked onto Ethan's, and she inclined her head politely. "Greetings, human traveler," she said in perfect English. "I am Lyra, your liaison and guide." Ethan blinked. "You speak English?" Lyra smiled gently. "Of course. Our scholars have studied your languages for decades. Communication is vital for cooperation." Ethan extended his hand awkwardly. "Ethan Cade, pleasure to meet you." Lyra looked at his hand and smiled faintly. "Greetings, Ethan Cade. Shall we proceed to the council hall?" As they walked, Ethan's eyes roamed over everything. Zyphora was beautiful, but it also felt different. There was a subtle order in the air, a sense of purpose behind every gesture and movement. Even the wildlife seemed to move in patterns, almost like a living choreography. "So, Lyra," Ethan said casually, trying to make conversation, "how do Zyphorans usually welcome visitors?" Lyra tilted her head. "There are many ways. The most important is honesty. Actions and words carry weight. They are observed carefully." "A casual remark can be more significant than you realize." Ethan laughed nervously. "Good to know. I'll try to keep my foot out of my mouth." Lyra's smile was polite, but there was a glint of amusement in her eyes. "We shall see." By the time they reached the council hall, Ethan already felt a bit overwhelmed. The building itself was enormous, with walls of crystal that reflected light in dazzling patterns. Inside, the hall was filled with Zyphorans seated in orderly rows, each one watching him carefully. He swallowed hard and reminded himself to stay calm. A voice echoed in the hall. "Captain Cade of Earth, you are welcome to Zyphora." Ethan bowed slightly, trying not to stumble over his words. "Thank you. I am honored to be here." The council members nodded politely, and Lyra gestured for him to sit. Ethan took his seat, noticing that everyone's gaze seemed to hold a mix of curiosity and expectation. "Before we begin," Ethan said, trying to ease the tension, "I must admit that humans have a sense of humor. It's often strange, and sometimes it gets me into trouble. For example," he smiled awkwardly, "sometimes we joke about sharing a bed with someone to show trust. Don't worry, I'm only joking." Lyra blinked once, her expression calm but unblinking. "Captain Cade," she said carefully, "on Zyphora, such a statement is considered a formal invitation. It symbolizes an offer of trust and personal honor." Ethan froze. "Wait, what?" Lyra inclined her head. "Your words imply a binding agreement according to our customs. To decline would require careful protocol." Ethan's mind raced. "Oh no, I didn't know. I was joking." "I didn't mean that," he stammered. "It's just humor on Earth, no obligation or—" Lyra held up a hand. "I understand. But the Council observes all interactions. You must navigate this carefully. On Zyphora, words are actions. Humor can be dangerous if misunderstood." Ethan swallowed hard, realizing the gravity of the situation. A simple joke, a casual remark, had suddenly placed him in the middle of a cultural minefield. He had not only to survive this visit diplomatically, but also honor customs he barely understood. Lyra continued, "You will learn more of our traditions as we proceed. It is important for you to understand them fully if you wish to maintain goodwill." Ethan nodded quickly. "Absolutely, I will. Thank you for explaining." The council session began. Ethan listened attentively as Zypherans discussed trade agreements, environmental research, and potential cultural exchanges. Every word and gesture seemed deliberate, calculated, and meaningful. He tried to pay close attention, understanding that even a small mistake could have consequences. After the session, Lyra guided him through the city. He noticed subtle signs everywhere, the way Zypherans greeted each other, the way they held objects, the order in which they walked. He realized that their society was built on mutual respect, observation, and understanding. A simple misstep could be interpreted as disrespect or worse, dishonesty. "Lyra," Ethan asked as they walked along a glowing river, "how did humans ever get invited to Zyphora if we're so clumsy?" Lyra's smile was gentle. "Curiosity brought you here. We value curiosity, courage, and adaptability. Humans possess traits that we respect even if your customs are chaotic." Ethan felt a small relief. "Well, that's good to hear. I'll try to, not mess things up too badly." Lyra laughed softly, a sound like wind chimes. "You may find that learning is the only way forward, and that even mistakes can teach valuable lessons." By nightfall, Ethan was exhausted but fascinated. Zephora's twin moons cast silvery light across the city, reflecting in the luminescent trees. He gazed at the skyline, realizing that his casual joke had placed him in a situation he would have never imagined. Yet he felt a spark of excitement. This planet was full of wonder, challenge, and discovery, and he was at the center of it all. Lyra looked at him with a calm expression. "Tomorrow, your first trial of understanding Zypheran customs begins. It will test your observation, patience, and honesty." Ethan blinked. "Trial already?" She nodded. "Yes. Every visitor must demonstrate respect for our traditions. Consider it an introduction to what we value most." Ethan exhaled deeply, realizing that the adventure on Zyphora was far more complex than he had imagined. One casual joke, one simple statement had opened a door into a culture rich, intricate, and completely alien. He would have to think carefully, act honestly, and, most importantly, keep learning fast. As he prepared for bed in the quarters assigned to him, a room both luxurious and alien in design, Ethan pondered what lay ahead. Zyphora was beautiful, strange, and potentially dangerous in ways he hadn't yet understood. And somewhere in his mind, he couldn't help but think of Lyra's words about the binding invitation. He wasn't sure how to respond yet, but he knew that navigating Zephyran culture would require more courage, wisdom, and humor than he had ever needed before. The night passed slowly, with Ethan staring at the twin moons outside his window. He felt a mixture of awe, fear, and anticipation. Whatever challenges awaited him, one thing was certain: Zyphora would change him forever. And so, humanity's first steps on Zyphora were not through conquest, nor through technology, but through words, trust, and a single careless joke. The next morning, Ethan awoke to a strange, gentle hum. Light poured through the crystalline walls of his quarters, painting the room in soft violet and silver. He stretched, feeling the soft texture of the bed beneath him, and remembered Lyra's words about the binding invitation. Great, he thought. How do I get out of this without offending an entire species? Before he could dwell on it too long, Lyra appeared at the door. Good morning, Ethan. Are you ready for your first lessons? Ethan swallowed nervously. Lessons? Yes, Lyra said calmly, as if reading his thoughts. Understanding our customs is not optional. Today you will begin observing, learning, and participating. Every action has meaning. Every word carries weight. Ethan sighed and followed her through the hallways of the council building. The city outside had come alive with activity. Zypherans moved with precision, carrying delicate objects, greeting each other with subtle gestures, and exchanging soft, musical tones of speech. Ethan noticed that even the way they walked seemed to convey respect or caution. Observe everything, Lyra instructed. A single mistake can be interpreted in ways you cannot imagine. Ethan nodded, straining his eyes and ears. He tried to memorize small details: the tilt of a head, the way hands were held, the pattern of their steps. He understood that he could not treat this as Earth casualness. On Zephora, casualness was dangerous. Their first stop was the ceremonial market, a sprawling open-air space filled with stalls selling glowing fruits, floating artifacts, and textiles that shimmered like water. Zephyrans traded politely, exchanging items with precise gestures and brief musical words. Ethan approached one of the vendors. "I'd like to buy, one of these," he said, pointing at a small glowing fruit. The vendor tilted their head. "You must present your hand with the correct angle," Lyra explained quickly. "Then speak the words of respect before the offering. Otherwise it is disrespectful." Ethan fumbled with his hands. "Words of respect? Yes, repeat after me. I honor the fruit and the care it took to grow it." Ethan cleared his throat. "I honor the fruit and the care it took to grow it." The vendor nodded slowly and the transaction completed. Ethan exhaled in relief. "Okay, this isn't too bad," he whispered to Lyra. Lyra tilted her head. "You are improving. Remember, even small mistakes in tone or gesture can carry meaning. Humor, sarcasm, or casual speech may confuse or offend." As they continued, Ethan's nervousness mixed with fascination. Everything on Zephora seemed layered with significance. Even the wind through the trees, the placement of stones, and the rhythm of walking paths had symbolic value. He realized humans often overlooked subtle details in daily life, but here, everything mattered. Later, they arrived at a public gathering space where Zephyrans performed rituals of honor and trust. Lyra gestured for Ethan to observe quietly. A group of Zephyrans approached a new visitor, offering a small glowing orb. The visitor bowed, accepted it with exact hand placement, and spoke a phrase of gratitude. The crowd watched silently, and Ethan noticed a ripple of approval sweep through them. "So this is like proving yourself?" Ethan asked softly. "In a way," Lyra said. "Trust is demonstrated through action, not just words. Our society measures integrity and respect carefully. Even minor gestures are noticed." Ethan nodded slowly, feeling both awe and pressure. His casual joke about sharing a bed suddenly seemed laughably insufficient to prepare him for this level of cultural complexity. As the day progressed, Ethan faced more challenges. At one point, he attempted to help a Zephoran elder lift a ceremonial artifact. He grabbed it incorrectly, and the elder's eyes widened in silent alarm. Lyra quickly guided Ethan's hands into the proper position. "Every motion has significance," she explained. "Even what you believe is helpful can be interpreted as rude." Ethan's head spun. Helpfulness, humor, casual gestures, all dangerous here. He realized he had to think differently, act differently, and observe endlessly. By mid-afternoon, Ethan felt he had begun to grasp some basics. Yet a small misstep lurked in his mind, his joke. He knew Zephyrans had a very specific interpretation of what he said, and the bed-sharing invitation hovered over him like an invisible cloud. He hoped no one would mention it before he understood how to respond respectfully. As they walked through a floating garden, Lyra spoke. "You have shown patience and effort today, Ethan, but there is one area that requires attention." Ethan froze. Which area?" Lyra's expression remained calm. "The matter of your statement yesterday. Humans speak in ways we do not fully understand. On Zephora, your words are binding. You must demonstrate understanding and intent through ritual gestures." Ethan's stomach sank. Here it comes. Ritual gestures? Can I, just explain it's a joke? Lyra's lips curved in a faint smile. "No, words alone are insufficient. Action and respect must follow. This is how trust is proven." Ethan nodded slowly, realizing he had little choice. To gain acceptance and avoid offense, he had to participate fully in their traditions, even the ones he had accidentally invoked. Lyra led him to a private chamber, where a small floating platform awaited. On it were ceremonial robes, glowing symbols, and a set of instructions written in both Zephyran script and basic English. "This will be your first formal exercise," Lyra explained. "It is designed to test observation, integrity, and respect. You will participate in a symbolic night ritual, which mirrors the meaning of your statement. Do not worry, it is non-romantic, though culturally significant." Ethan blinked. "Non-romantic, right?" Lyra's expression remained serene. "Correct. It is about trust and honor, not attraction. Many misunderstand this. Follow instructions carefully." Ethan took a deep breath. He changed into the ceremonial robes, feeling their light texture shift around him. Every motion felt weighty. every gesture deliberate. He followed Lyra's instructions step by step, bowing precisely, offering a symbolic token of trust, and reciting phrases that conveyed honesty and respect. As the ritual progressed, Ethan felt a strange calm settle over him. The initial fear and confusion gave way to concentration. He realized that this was not punishment. It was an opportunity. Through this ritual, he could demonstrate humanity's adaptability, intelligence, and willingness to respect alien cultures. Lyra observed silently, her eyes attentive but encouraging. "You are learning quickly," she said softly. "Humans have a natural ingenuity. Combine it with patience and you will earn respect." Ethan felt a small surge of pride. Perhaps this strange alien world was not so impossible to navigate after all. If he could respect their customs while keeping his human perspective, he could build bridges, learn deeply, and maybe even leave a mark that would be remembered on Zyphora. By the time the ritual ended, night had fallen. The floating platform glowed faintly, illuminating the city below. Ethan stepped off it, feeling a mixture of exhaustion, relief, and accomplishment. He had survived his first cultural challenge and begun to understand Zyphora's values. Lyra smiled. "Tomorrow you will face further lessons. Observation, cooperation, and integrity will be tested in more complex ways. Are you ready?" Ethan laughed softly despite his fatigue. "As ready as I'll ever be. I guess humans can learn fast when we have to." Lyra's laughter, soft and melodic, echoed in the chamber. "Indeed, and perhaps Zyphorans will learn from you as well." As Ethan prepared to rest that night, he reflected on the day's events. What had begun as a simple joke, a careless statement, had turned into a profound lesson about trust, culture, and adaptability. He realized that surviving on Zyphora required more than knowledge. It demanded humility, observation, and respect. And perhaps most importantly, it required humor that could survive interstellar diplomacy. The sun of Zyphora rose slowly over the violet horizon, bathing the city in a soft, sparkling light. Ethan awoke with a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. Today was the day he would face his first real test, a Zyphoran trial designed to measure observation, integrity, and adaptability. The ritual from yesterday had prepared him, but he knew this trial would be far more challenging. Lyra was already waiting outside his quarters, her posture calm, but her eyes sharp and assessing. "Good morning, Ethan," she said. "Today you will participate in your first official trial. It will involve teamwork, problem-solving, and cultural understanding. Are you ready?" Ethan nodded, swallowing a nervous gulp. "I'll do my best." Lyra led him to a large chamber that looked like nothing Ethan had ever seen. The room floated above the ground, a vast platform surrounded by glowing energy fields. At the center, several Zyphoran officials stood silently watching. Strange devices hovered in the air, and holographic symbols projected themselves across the walls. "This trial is called the Test of Honor," Lyra explained. "It is designed to challenge visitors in ways that reveal honesty, courage, and respect for Zyphoran customs. You will face several tasks, each requiring careful thought and cooperation. Fail and the lesson will be repeated. Succeed and you will earn respect and trust," Ethan gulped. "Sounds serious," Lyra smiled faintly. "It is. But remember, humans have qualities Zyphorans admire: creativity, resilience, and adaptability. Trust yourself as well." The first task appeared before him, a floating puzzle of interconnected spheres, each glowing with different colors. Ethan's instructions were simple in words but complex in practice. He had to arrange the spheres in a pattern that balanced their energy flows. Without breaking the flow of light between them, Ethan studied the puzzle carefully. His first instinct was to rush, moving spheres randomly to see what worked. A red sphere fell out of alignment and a soft alarm echoed through the chamber. Lyra raised a hand signaling him to pause. "Observe first," she instructed. "Rushing leads to mistakes. Notice patterns, listen to the energy." Ethan took a deep breath, closing his eyes for a moment to sense the flow. Slowly he began moving spheres, testing subtle alignments. He realized that the puzzle responded not only to placement but to intent, an interesting feature of Zyphoran design. By focusing on balance rather than speed, he gradually solved the puzzle. A soft chime sounded, signaling success. Lyra nodded approvingly. "Well done. You are learning the importance of patience and observation." The second task was more physical, A small floating platform hovered above a shimmering pit. On it were objects that needed to be moved from one side to the other, but the platform would only support cooperation. Ethan had to synchronize his movements with a Zephyrin partner, though he had never met this individual before. The Zephyrin stepped forward, tall, calm, with shimmering skin reflecting the light. "Greetings, human," the figure said. "Shall we begin?" Ethan nodded. "Let's do it." At first, the task was chaotic. Ethan and the Zephyrin moved in different rhythms. Objects tipped dangerously and the platform rocked. Ethan realized that he needed to adapt to his partner's style. Rather than trying to control the situation himself, he observed the Zephyrin's movements, mirrored them, and synchronized his timing. Slowly, the objects moved safely across the platform. When the task was complete, both participants bowed to each other in acknowledgement. Lyra's voice echoed in the chamber. Human ingenuity combined with cooperation, excellent. The third challenge was unexpected. Ethan was led to a forest-like chamber, with luminescent plants and glowing creatures that moved silently among the trees. A Zephyrin elder approached. "In this task," the elder explained, "you will demonstrate respect and empathy toward living beings. Capture the essence of trust without harming or alarming them." Ethan glanced around nervously. Tiny creatures darted between branches, and some glowed brighter when he moved. He realized he had to think creatively. Using gentle gestures, soft tones, and observation, he began to interact with the creatures. Slowly, they approached him, landing on his outstretched hands and shoulders. He marveled at how the Zephyrins had trained their beings to respond to trust and calmness, not force. Lyra observed silently. "You are beginning to understand Zephyrin values," she said softly. "Empathy and patience are as important as intelligence." By mid-afternoon, Ethan was tired but exhilarated. The final task of the day awaited, a symbolic trial of trust designed to test honesty and courage under pressure. He was led to a platform suspended above a glowing chasm, where a Zephyrin official placed a small sealed container. "You must carry this container across the bridge," the official explained. "It contains a symbolic representation of your word. You may not look inside. Trust yourself and trust the process. If you falter, the lesson is repeated." Ethan took a deep breath. He felt the weight of the moment. Everything he had learned so far, the patience, the observation, the empathy, culminated here. One misstep could symbolize dishonesty or carelessness. Carefully, he stepped onto the bridge, focusing on balance and steadiness. The bridge swayed slightly, and Ethan felt the container shift in his hands. He reminded himself to trust his instincts and move deliberately. Halfway across, he stumbled slightly, but he corrected himself quickly. A surge of pride and relief washed over him as he reached the other side safely. Lyra's voice echoed again. "Human perseverance and integrity. You have completed the tasks honorably." Ethan exhaled, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. "That was intense," Lyra smiled. "And necessary. Your efforts today have shown that humans can understand and respect Zephyrin traditions. You have proven adaptability, intelligence, and moral strength. The Council will take notice." As the trial concluded, Ethan reflected on the day. He had begun to realize something important. Zephyra's challenges were not meant to intimidate, but to teach, reveal, and test the best qualities in a visitor. Humans had a natural curiosity and ingenuity that could thrive here, but only if combined with patience, respect, and observation. Lyra walked beside him as they returned to his quarters. "You have done well," she said quietly. "Many humans would have failed these tasks or worse, offended the Council unintentionally." Ethan smiled, though he was still tired. "Thanks, I guess I've learned that joking around doesn't work here." Lyra's eyes twinkled. "Humor is not forbidden, but understanding context is vital. You must always consider how your words and actions are interpreted." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "Got it, words and actions matter, always." The rest of the evening was quiet. Ethan prepared for rest, reflecting on what he had learned. He realized that his casual joke from the first day, the one that had caused so much worry, was now part of a larger lesson. Humor, curiosity, and courage could be strengths if paired with understanding and respect. Before drifting to sleep, he thought about Lyra. She had guided him patiently, correcting mistakes without judgment and showing him the true spirit of Zephyrin culture. Despite the initial tension caused by his careless words, he found himself looking forward to learning more, exploring more, and building trust. This planet is strange, alien, and challenging, he thought. But humans can thrive here. We just have to use our minds, our hearts, and our willingness to learn. And as the twin moons rose over the violet horizon, Ethan knew one thing with certainty. Humanity's first steps on Xiphora were not only about survival, they were about adapting, understanding and proving the strength of the human spirit in ways that no technology or weapon could accomplish. The night air on Xiphora shimmered under twin moons, casting soft silver and violet light across the city. Ethan Cade felt a nervous thrill as he followed Lyra toward the floating pavilion, the ceremonial site where the final test of trust and understanding would take place. He had prepared for the challenges, learned the customs, and proved himself in the earlier trials, yet this moment felt different. This ritual, Lyra explained as they walked along a crystal bridge, is the culmination of your interactions here. It honors honesty, trust, and personal integrity. Your statement yesterday, your joke, initiated this tradition. Do not worry. It is not romantic. It is symbolic. Ethan swallowed hard. Right, symbolic, got it. Not romantic, just trust and honor. Lyra's faint smile reassured him. Exactly. Follow instructions carefully. Every action matters. The pavilion floated above a serene river of glowing water. Xiphoran elders and council members observed silently, their expressions serene yet intense. The platform itself was circular, with glowing symbols etched into its surface. Ethan stepped onto it, feeling the energy of the space hum beneath his feet. Lyra handed him a small crystalline token. This represents your commitment to honesty and understanding. It must be placed at the center of the pavilion. Approach the ritual with focus and sincerity. Ethan nodded, trying to steady his heartbeat. As he approached the center, the first part of the ritual began, a series of challenges that tested patience, perception, and integrity. The first challenge required Ethan to balance a floating crystal orb above a pool of light without letting it touch the surface. The orb responded to intention, not just physical movement. Ethan realized that rushing or forcing it would fail. He focused, steadying his mind, and slowly lifted the orb. It hovered perfectly above the pool, glowing brighter with every heartbeat of concentration. Lyra's eyes gleamed with approval. Patience and focus, excellent. This symbolizes the weight of your words and actions. You are proving your understanding of responsibility. Next, Ethan was asked to navigate a labyrinth of holographic walls that appeared and disappeared in unpredictable patterns. Each wrong step caused the path to reset. He noticed subtle cues, patterns in the light, faint shifts in the floor, and a soft hum that indicated the correct direction. Drawing on his experience from the earlier trials, Ethan relied on observation rather than force. Step by careful step, he moved through the labyrinth until he reached the center. The council's silent observation gave him a sense of pride. He realized that his human curiosity, combined with adaptability, allowed him to succeed where hesitation might have failed. Finally, Lyra instructed Ethan to offer a gesture of trust, symbolic of the bed-sharing statement he had made jokingly. She handed him a second token, shaped like a small luminescent feather. This must be offered to me, she said calmly, as a sign that you understand Xiphoran customs and honor them. It represents mutual trust, nothing else. Ethan hesitated. The idea of the gesture still felt strange, but he reminded himself that it was a test of integrity, not romance. With steady hands, he placed the feather on a small pedestal before Lyra, bowing respectfully. Lyra accepted the gesture with grace. Trust is a bridge between individuals and cultures. By offering it, you demonstrate understanding, respect, and sincerity. As the ritual progressed, Ethan felt a profound connection not just to Lyra, but to Xiphoran culture as a whole. The trial was not designed to intimidate, but to teach, unite, and honor the values of their people. He realized that humans could thrive not through force but through honesty, courage, and willingness to learn. The final moments of the ritual required him to speak words of commitment in Xiphoran tradition. Carefully, he recited phrases that expressed gratitude, honesty, and a desire to understand. His voice carried across the pavilion, blending with the hum of the floating platform and the shimmering moons above. When he finished, the elders and council members nodded in approval. Lyra placed her hand lightly on his shoulder. You have completed the ritual honorably, Ethan. Humans can adapt, learn, and uphold our values. You have proven that words, when paired with action, carry weight and meaning. Ethan exhaled deeply. Relief, pride, and exhaustion mixed within him. He had survived the ritual, navigated cultural complexity, and, most importantly, shown humanity in the best possible light. Lyra smiled. Now you are not just a visitor. You are a trusted participant in our society, someone who can bridge worlds. Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. The challenge that had seemed impossible yesterday had become a defining moment of growth. Humans, he realized, could face alien worlds not by domination, but by intelligence, empathy, and honor. The night concluded with the council and elders acknowledging Ethan formally. Soft music floated through the pavilion, and lights shimmered like stars in the violet sky. Ethan looked at Lyra, silently grateful for her guidance. "This is only the beginning," she said. "You will leave a mark here not as a conqueror, but as a symbol of what humans can achieve through understanding and integrity." Ethan nodded. He had come as a traveler, curious and somewhat reckless, and he would leave as a bridge between species, a representative of human adaptability, honor, and curiosity. The morning sun painted Zephora in soft, iridescent hues signaling a new beginning. Ethan Cade awoke with a renewed sense of purpose. The ritual had ended. The council had recognized his efforts, and he now felt a deep connection with the planet and its people. Lyra was waiting outside his quarters, her eyes reflecting the twin moons still faint in the morning sky. "Today we finalize the agreements and prepare for your departure," she said. "Your efforts have proven humans can understand and honor Zephyran values. The council is eager to continue collaboration." Ethan smiled, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. "I never imagined a joke could lead to all of this." Lyra's lips curved in a small smile. "Humor is not forbidden. It must be guided by understanding. You have learned that well." The day began with formal ceremonies. Ethan, dressed in ceremonial attire, addressed the council and gathered Zephyran officials. He spoke with clarity and respect, expressing humanity's desire for cooperation, shared knowledge, and mutual growth. The council members listened attentively, nodding as Ethan emphasized honesty, curiosity, and integrity. When he finished, a silence fell over the chamber, followed by nods and soft musical sounds, a sign of acceptance and approval. Lyra guided him through the final steps of the formal agreements. Documents were signed, symbolic gifts exchanged, and a new era of collaboration was initiated. Ethan felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. Humans and Zephyrians had just taken their first meaningful steps toward understanding, not through dominance but through respect and honor. After the ceremonies, Lyra led Ethan to a terrace overlooking the glowing forests of Zephora. The twin moons reflected in the rivers, and the wind carried the scent of luminescent flowers. "You have done well, Ethan," she said softly. "Many humans might have failed, but you combined curiosity, ingenuity, and respect. That is why you succeeded." Ethan leaned against the railing, gazing at the horizon. "I guess humans can thrive anywhere if we're willing to learn and adapt." Lyra nodded. "Indeed, and perhaps humans can teach us too. You have reminded us that humor, courage, and creative thinking are strengths." Ethan chuckled softly. "I just hope my jokes don't get me into trouble again." Lyra laughed lightly, the sound like wind chimes. "Perhaps next time you will consider context first. But yes, humans have a unique way of seeing the world. That is why your species is remarkable." As the day ended, Ethan prepared to leave Zephora. His ship, the Aurora Pathfinder, gleamed under the twin moons. He looked back at the city, reflecting on what he had learned. Trust is earned through action. Respect requires observation, and courage is shown through patience and integrity. Lyra joined him on the landing platform. "You have bridged worlds, Ethan. Zephora will remember your visit, and I hope you will return one day, not as a visitor, but as a friend and partner." Ethan extended his hand. "I would be honored, Lyra. You've taught me more than I could have imagined." They shook hands firmly, a gesture that symbolized trust, respect, and a bond between species. Ethan boarded the ship, feeling a deep sense of purpose. Humans had proven their ability to adapt, learn, and honor alien cultures without force or dominance. As the Aurora Pathfinder lifted off, Ethan looked down at Zephora. The glowing rivers, luminous forests, and shimmering cities stretched beneath him. He felt pride not just for himself but for humanity. Humans could survive and thrive among the stars not by conquest, but through intelligence, empathy, and honor. Lyra waved from the platform. Safe travels, Ethan, and remember, the galaxy is full of lessons waiting for those willing to learn. Ethan smiled. I'll remember, and I'll be back. The ship soared into the violet sky, leaving Zephora behind, but carrying with it a story of courage, trust, and the power of human ingenuity. In a galaxy of infinite worlds, humanity had taken its first steps as not conquerors, but as ambassadors of curiosity, honor, and hope. Ethan knew this was only the beginning. The universe was vast, full of mysteries, cultures, and challenges. But he also knew this: wherever humans went, they could thrive, learn, and leave a positive mark, not through strength alone, but through the very best qualities of their nature. And now